Hi, everyone. This is Roger Martella, and I want to thank you for tuning in to our terrific conversation on the fall conference in Baltimore and this podcast with some very distinguished panelists who are going to share with you their excitement and their experiences and the successes they've had at past conferences and how that's going to translate into a really great session this fall in Baltimore. I couldn't be more excited to talk about the conference and the experience and the impact they've had on me and some of our panelists on the phone. By way of introduction, I'm a member of the SEER Council and also an environmental health and safety lawyer at General Electric. But I've had a very diverse career, working for years in the government and then in private practice and now in-house. And as I've thought about the diversity of this career, I've come to appreciate that what has been the common thread through all these different positions over 20 years has been the ABA SEER and participation in these conferences, which have spanned all of these many jobs and these many different settings, and has really enabled me, I think, to the extent I've had any success, to kind of weave this thread through by attending these conferences, and has been one of the most important influences during my career. It's always been my experience at the ABA fall and spring conferences that they recruit the best speakers on the most relevant topics and really provide unparalleled opportunities to network with the most diverse group of people from numerous different types of environmental careers from all over the country. And I think it gives a great example to also appreciate how what we do day to day fits into the broader picture of an environmental, energy, and natural resources practice by meeting diverse people from diverse practice areas who come together and not only focus on specific topics, but the bigger picture of the way what we do fits into our career generally. And so this is a really unparalleled opportunity. Having the fall conference in Baltimore also presents some really unique advantages, and we're going to turn those over in just a second to some of our panelists to talk about that. And I want to begin by turning first to Jonathan Nwagbaraocha, who is the planning chair for the fall conference in Baltimore, and also the environmental affairs manager for Xerox's environmental health and safety program. Jonathan, congratulations, first of all, for taking charge of, one of the most important events of the year in the environmental law, energy law space, and doing such a successful job pulling this together in a great city. And I want to ask you to just perhaps share kind of what you're most excited about and give a general overview of the high points of the conference that you've been working on.
Sure, happy to, Roger, and thank you for hosting this podcast. First, I'll just start off by saying that the city of Baltimore has a special place in my heart. It was the city I was actually born and raised in. I went to law school there. I went to the University of Maryland for law school, and I thoroughly enjoyed the city. And I was actually even married at the American Visionary Art Museum in Baltimore. So it's definitely a city that has a special place for me. And I'm really excited about showcasing the city, and I'm glad that the conference is located in Baltimore. I'm also excited about bringing together really speakers from around the U.S., but also international speakers to discuss some of and you mentioned this, some timely and relevant topics for environment, energy, and natural resources. Because we're in Baltimore, usually there's kind of an unofficial theme, which is the new administration, and this year will be no different. We're going to highlight we're going to have actually a plenary session discussing and highlighting some of the priorities for the Trump administration as it relates to environment, energy, and natural resources. But in addition to that, we're also going to touch upon topics that I believe are going to benefit attendees in their general practice of law. And I'll break it up into two ways. We'll have subject matter specific panels. We're going to have an update on the Chesapeake Bay, a panel about Chevron deference, a panel about TSCA and what you need to know as you practice law related to the recent updates and what information you need to start to gather. But also we're going to have some interesting panels on food law in cities as they begin initiatives to improve their resiliency and sustainability. So that's one category. The other one I'd say is skill-based. So we're going to bring the Titans back again, and they're going to talk about strategies to resolving complex cases. And it's always a fan favorite, and I hope it's going to continue to be for this conference as well. We're also going to have an advanced negotiation skills panel to talk about how to resolve complex complex litigations involving complex technology. So I'm really excited about those elements and those kind of underlying themes for this conference. But also I'd like to talk about really the keynote we have coming to speak to the conference, and that's going to be Julia Olson. She's the Executive Director and Chief Legal Counsel for Our Children's Trust, and she's really taken the lead on the case Juliana versus the United States, which is essentially a constitutional climate change case. I'm really interested to hear about what she has to say about that case, but also generally about the role of lawsuits as it comes to the enforcement of environmental, energy, and natural resources law and policy. And then finally, before we turn this over to everyone else, I'll just highlight two special events. We're going to continue the SEER Run Club. That was a hit last year in Denver, and we're going to continue that. And I hope everyone also gets prepared for a nice evening on the Spirit of Baltimore. We're going to have a nice evening with food and networking in the Inner Harbor on the Spirit of Baltimore. It's a fantastic boat, and you really get a chance to see the beauty of Baltimore and the Inner Harbor at night.
Jonathan, congratulations on the great panels and the events. Now, the fall conference is always also a little unique in terms of the way it provides unique opportunities to interface with ABA leadership, to participate in the ABA, and for networking. And maybe you could just take a minute and talk about some of those opportunities beyond the actual panel discussions.
Sure. In addition to the panel discussions, there are going to be a few chances, really more than a few chances, to help conference attendees network with members of council, but also leaders in their fields. We're going to have a reception the first evening of the conference where we're going to welcome in attendees, and they're going to be able to, again, meet everyone. Everyone's going to have a name tag, and everyone's going to be approachable. And what I've found is that's one of the best times to really pull someone aside and have a nice chat about what you're looking forward to at the conference. But in addition to that, we're also going to have law students there who are always eager to talk to and hear advice about what they should be focusing on, not just in school, but as they're thinking about the next stages in their law school careers, but also professional careers. And throughout the conference, I mentioned the Spirit of Baltimore, but that's another great example where we're going to have a chance for you between sessions, but also evening events we're going to have as well, where you can have an opportunity to talk to the person that you've just seen during a plenary session or breakout session. And I would say one of the great things about this section is everyone's really approachable. So if you see someone, you've heard something on a panel and you want to follow up with them about it, follow up in between sessions, follow up during the evening events. If you happen to be running with that person, that's a great chance to talk to them during the SEER Run Club event as well. So those are just a few examples I can think of.
Great. Well, thank you. Congratulations again for all the hard work of you and your committee for pulling off such an important and successful agenda. I want to turn to Jennifer Wills, who is an attorney with the EPA Office of General Counsel, where she's worked for more than 14 years. I think I've worked with Jennifer for much of that time, and she focuses right now on chemical regulation, implementing TSCA, and very cutting-edge issues like that. She also co-chairs SEER's Special Committee on Environmental Justice and is also an adjunct professor of international environmental law at Virginia Tech. And Jen and Jonathan and Deanna, who were spoke to, represent exactly the type of diverse attendees that you'll encounter in Baltimore from very different jobs, very different careers, who come together to share ideas. And so, Jen, thanks for your role in supporting Jonathan and planning this very successful conference. But I want to ask you about, your own history during your career of how you've attended these conferences, how they've helped you with your practice through education, networking, and other opportunities.
Thanks, Roger. I am happy to be on this podcast because I am a huge fan of SEER, and I'm a very big fan of SEER fall conferences. I started attending the fall conferences in 2008, took place in Phoenix, and at the time I knew maybe 2 people there. So I've attended pretty much all of them since that time. I was on the planning committee for the Miami meeting in 2014. And I'd like to say that as a government lawyer with the EPA, I interact with my colleagues all the time, but what I wanted to do was expand my network beyond the EPA and be a part of this larger group of environmental lawyers, environmental and energy and natural resources lawyers. And SEER is that group. When I go to the fall meetings, I'm able to interact with other people outside of my day-to-day job. And most importantly, related to my practice, I get to hear the concerns of private sector lawyers and their clients as, issues that relate to what I'm doing as a regulator. So, and I take those concerns and I take those issues, those possibly emerging issues, to my colleagues. And so I share that information with them as well. And I've always felt that the people in SEER are what make it the organization that it is. As I mentioned, it's a large group. It's the preeminent group of environmental lawyers in the nation. And it's, made of great people like Roger and Jonathan and Deanna. And they're the policymakers, the litigators, and they're working on the biggest environmental cases in the nation. So just having a chance to hear from them and meet them and talk with them in person is why I go to these meetings.
And that's great. And your role, your participation, your role is as with many others, is really critical, I think, to not just the sessions, but bringing that type of interaction, those types of relationships that you wouldn't normally get day to day, that are very long lasting well after the conferences come to an end. So given all the help you've done, what are you most looking forward to about the conference? What are you kind of most excited about on the agenda or for the events in Baltimore?
So there's I feel like there's always so many programs, so I'm going to limit it to a couple. I'm really interested in my role as the co-chair of the Special Committee on Environmental Justice. We're working to raise awareness of how new technologies can be used to improve communities. And so there are a couple of programs that they might not address that issue directly, but they are going to talk about emerging technologies regarding pollution sensors, monitoring, and what I also want to hear are about the legal issues that might arise through the use of those technologies. There's also a program on compliance that's going to talk about using remote sensors and crowdsourcing. So I guess if I had to say, I'm excited about these programs. They're going to address the emerging issues that are coming out with respect to technologies and how those are going to possibly change the practice of environmental law for all of us. And the other is, of course, the networking. I mentioned the people. You'll hear me say it again. And Jonathan talked about the evening events, and those are my favorite. You get to network with the leaders in the field in a relaxed setting. So it's comfortable, and you get to I get to see my friends who I haven't seen in over maybe a year since the last meeting, but we've become friends over time since we've been part of SEER and, practice of environmental law.
Great. Well, thank you, Jen, and we look forward to seeing you there. I'd like to turn now to Deanna Ray, who serves as the Associate General Counsel for the Arkansas Natural Resources Commission. Her practice is focused on soil and water conservation, water delivery to rural areas, and various other natural resource matters. And she's also, as are the others, very active in planning for SEER conferences and working on the water conference right now. Deanna, thanks for joining as well and sharing your insight. And I'd like to maybe ask you what your advice would be for someone who's attending one of the SEER conferences for the first time.
Well, thanks for having me, Roger and Jonathan. I attended my first fall conference in 2015, and then I attended again in 2016. And as a first-time attendee in 2015, attending the fall conference is quite a bit different than what I was used to in attending the water law conference, because it's much bigger and there's a much broader topic list. And my advice to a first-time attendee would be to maybe branch out and go to topics that may not necessarily relate 100% to your practice, but that you can gain some knowledge from and relate back to your practice, because that's kind of what I did, and I learned so much from these panels that I went to that weren't necessarily directly related to my practice, but were indirectly beneficial to me in my practice, but I gained knowledge that I never would have been able to get had I not kind of branched out, for lack of a better term, beyond my comfort zone. Because, when you get these panelists up there that are the best of the best in their field, you're going to learn so much. So definitely do that. And then I guess my other piece of advice would be to go to the networking events. Jennifer and Jonathan have both talked a lot about how important and how fun they are, but they really are a lot of fun. You really meet some great people, and usually the events are something very unique to the area. It sounds like this year is going to be no different. But networking is really important, I feel like, at these conferences, and so don't be afraid to talk to somebody you don't know or introduce yourself to somebody that maybe you heard on a panel or are hoping to hear on a panel later on after the networking event.
So Deanna, you've had a chance to focus on the fall program, and you've been to other conferences. Looking at the agenda and everything, what are some of the things you're most looking forward to that are kind of standouts for you?
I think for me, one of the panels that really is one that seems very, very interesting to me and probably to a lot of people is the panel on administration changes in the Trump administration, because I think we're just in a period right now where there's a lot of uncertainty about what to expect and what might be coming down the pipeline. And so I think it's going to be very interesting to hear what these panelists have to say about what their perspective is on what one might expect or what they are seeing kind of develop as we move forward with this administration. And I think that's going to be probably a very popular panel. So that one is really sticking out to me. And, of course, the networking events that we've talked about numerous times now.
No, that all makes sense. And I think, given there will be a lot of interest, I'm sure, in that panel and that discussion. I think this has always been one of the reasons I think Baltimore has been such a successful city. There's been many reasons, but one of the reasons we keep coming back is because of the close access to people from D.C., some of the regulators, some of the very influential policymakers in Washington, are always happy to participate. And you, I think, have even a more unique opportunity to have this diverse mix of people there who I'm sure will be wanting to chat a lot about a lot of the transitions, a lot of the changes that are going on at the moment. I want to wrap up with maybe one final question, Jen, for you and Deanna. I understand you both participated in the Leadership Development Program. I thought maybe you could just share a little bit about that for those who might be interested or want to learn more about it and how you benefited from the Leadership Development Program and attending the conferences along the way.
Okay, well, I was part of the Leadership Development Program. Actually, Jennifer and Jonathan and I all did it together. We were in the same small group, and participating in that really was a great opportunity to really learn a whole lot about SEER, and then it also provided a great opportunity to contribute to SEER in our projects. But I think most importantly, it really provided some great networking opportunities. I've made friends now with Jonathan and Jennifer and many of our other LDP classmates. And I think you learn a lot about how to become a leader within SEER, and you kind of, if you're interested in, chairing a committee or helping plan a conference, this is a great way to kind of get plugged in and learn about the section and get a good understanding of what's expected of people in these positions that are chairing committees and planning conferences and all of those things. So I think it's a great opportunity for anybody that's interested in a leadership role in a section and learning more about the section, and then, of course, getting the opportunity to meet people that you might otherwise not, you wouldn't otherwise get to meet.
And I'll add to that. I second everything that Deanna said, so I'll add a new thought to that, which is every month when you're in the Leadership Development Program, there's a monthly call, and the section will bring a guest speaker to talk with the group about a professional development topic. Roger, I think maybe you've even been one of those speakers in the past. I know John Cruden was recently, and talking about, mentorship and things that you can do in your career to help your career, as well as ethics even. I think we've talked about ethics. We've talked about millennials in the practice. So those were interesting discussions that we had.
Yeah, I completely agree with that, Jennifer. And you mentioned mentorship. Part of the LDP program is you are assigned a mentor from the SEER leadership, and they kind of check in with you throughout the program. And I thought that was great to have, somebody that's been in the section longer than I have just be there to answer questions or support me in making it through the program.
Well, it's great to hear about those positive experiences, and clearly, your contributions as a result, both during the program and afterwards, are greatly appreciated in these roles. And thank you to both of you for your participation today. It's been very helpful. Jonathan, with that, I'd like to turn it back to you to maybe just kind of wrap up and make your closing argument for why we should all be coming to Baltimore and taking advantage of these once-a-year opportunities.
Yeah, and thanks again, Roger. And besides visiting what I think is a great city with friendly people, I think another reason, and really my final pitch is really, we've created a program from the public service project to the end of the conference, from the panels to the networking. We've created a program that we think will educate and challenge attendees about the most relevant and influential laws, policies, and precedents affecting their practice. And in addition to that, it's going to also give you some skills to help advance your practice. So I think if you want to be at the premier forum where you're going to learn about the timely and relevant developments and also build upon the skills that you have to help you in your practice, I think the place to be is Baltimore in October, and I really hope to see everyone there, and I look forward to meeting everyone that attends the conference.
Great, and thank you, Jonathan, for your participation today. I'll just close myself with my own personal experience. I think I've been to every one of the fall conferences in Baltimore in recent history, and I will guarantee that based on my experience there, that anybody who attends will walk away not only learning new things that are going to be really relevant to the success of their career going forward, but as I talked about before, I think what probably is harder to quantify with these conferences is that whole common thread aspect that they lend to our careers. I am absolutely confident that the relationships I've built at these conferences, the things I've learned, the understanding I've had of the way what I do fits into bigger pictures has been really the common thread that has spanned, pretty diverse career across many different types of jobs and things like that. So I would think anybody who's going to attend and be an active participant will find a similar experience, that they'll walk away with a relationship or something they learned in this fall that's going to help them down the road and understand better how they proceed with a successful career as an environmental, energy, and natural resources lawyer. So we hope to see a lot of people there. Thank you again for tuning in to our podcast, and we'll look forward to seeing folks in Baltimore.
This program is produced by the ABA section of Environment, Energy, and Resources. If you enjoyed this program, please rate and review us on iTunes, and help us spread the word by recommending us to your colleagues. To learn more about our section and to join us, please visit our website at www.americanbar.org/environ.